Good morning, Sal. This is our last live for 2024, man. How you
Yeah.
feeling?
Good morning. This should be a fun show because I'm doing this extemporaneous, away from Adrian knowing what the content is going to be, what the topic's going to be. And I'm going to surprise Adrian like the rest of you guys out there. And this is going to be some of our new format, which is murder in America, crime in America. You know, 3 women a day get murdered, and we're going to start covering cases like that. A lot of education, prevention. I've just about finished doing all my crime stories. Every once in a while, I'll bring one up because I know people like it. But I can get real energetic and passionate about these stories because I can use my personality to describe exactly what went on. So that's what we're going to do starting next week.
Yeah, no, I mean it's going to be really interesting to see what we come up with, for the year 2024 and everything that's going to come because we've been working together for about 6 months with our show, building it and making it, to where it is now. So, I mean, yeah, we got people already in here commenting and stuff, but before we get into your story, I just wanted to tell everybody, thanks for subscribing and following on us and always being supportive because I mean we get a lot of good comments and a lot of good information from people. They provide some more stories and topics for us. But yeah, we've got some good listeners out there, man.
All right.
Let's.
So this particular story centers around what the general public feels, or maybe just working people in the United States. This story takes place in Long Island, New York, and it goes back almost 20 years, 15, 20 years. Had I not got the Sinatra Club DVD placed in the red box rentals all over the United States, I'm sure people remember when the red box was outside 7-Elevens and all this kind of stuff, I would have no knowledge of how someone picked up the movie and then searched me out. And I'm in Studios, California. I've been there 15 years writing. I'm writing under different names. I'm meeting all kinds of producers. But this was around 2011. And ironically, in most cases, when a book gets published, then sooner or later, if it's a good book, somebody picks it up for a movie. But in my case, we got the funds to do the movie Sinatra Club. We didn't have a lot of money. That's why it wasn't exotic. And we had some good actors. And so we get the movie done. And as we're editing the movie, I get a call from my agent. She says, look, can you go to New York and meet with Simon and Schuster? Because I had created a proposal with another writer, the guy Steve Dougherty, who eventually co-wrote Sinatra Club with me. I said, sure, I can go there. In the meantime, I had been communicating with several people. And this one person, her name was Jennifer. She kept bugging me like, oh, if you're coming to New York, I want to take you to lunch. I want to take you to dinner. The situation was that she was in the middle of this storm back there a couple of years before she had contacted me. It was called Sandy. And she lost her house. She lost everything. I felt sorry for her. And I mailed her a laptop. I had several laptops. I sent her a laptop. So we sort of became friends online. She told me she had 2 kids. And then she told me a little bit about her story. And I shook my head thinking, oh my gosh, she got caught up in the fascination with the New York mob. And so did her husband. So her husband, now you guys out there can Google this. Her husband was called David Gross, Gross. And her name was Jennifer Gross. So what happened was her husband was a Nassau County judge. And he got so enamored with the mob, he was drunk on power, that he was a judge and get away with a lot of stuff. He was laundering money for the mob.
Really?
And, yeah. And she was loving it because, whatever the fee was, maybe he was getting 10, 15%, drug dealers and all this kind of stuff in Long Island. So what happened was he got busted. And when he finally admitted everything, I don't remember how many years they gave him, 4, 5, 6 years or something. The dirt came out that he had a girlfriend.
Oh, geez.
And so Jennifer was devastated. And she told me the whole story. She wanted me to write a script for her, but I wasn't interested in writing a script for a woman whose husband was a judge and, bit the dust because he was corrupt. And I said, well, I'm coming to New York. I've got to go meet with Simon and Schuster, the publishers, for this new book that we want to do, which was called Sinatra Club. I hadn't got the deal yet. And so I flew to New York and I told her I was going to be on 6th Avenue. She says, well, I'll pick you up. So I'm going to go see my brother in Long Island. So, well, I live in Long Island. I take you to your brother's house. I said, okay. And she made all kinds of offers. I didn't want anything to do with her in any other way. I felt sorry for her. She thought I was going to sleep with her or something. That was never going to happen. I mean, she just was not somebody I wanted to get involved with in that capacity. Yeah.
I found an article about this judge. You want me to give you information about how much time he got and what
I
he was
know all
doing?
about it. You can share it with the listeners in a little bit.
Okay.
So I fly to New York and I go to the meeting, and I have this meeting online with my agent in LA, and we get a book deal. And then she said, well, I'll take you to your brother's. So we're driving from Manhattan to Long Island, maybe an hour or so. And she's fidgety. And she's tall and really skinny. And her phone it's blowing up. So I said, why don't you cut that phone off for a minute? I want to give you some advice. She looked at me. I go, first of all, I'm from the street. If you want to have a good life because your husband cheated on you and he's in jail, you got to stop hooking. She said, what? I go, I can tell you're a hooker. And stop doing those amphetamines because you're fidgety. She, how do you know that? How do you know that? She pulls over. She starts crying. I go, look, I want to be your friend. And I was her friend, but you got to stop doing this stuff and get a regular job. So she cried for 15, 20 minutes. And I said, okay, take me to my brother's. But I promise you that if you keep going in the wrong direction, your life is going to go into the toilet. So that was part one.
Okay.
I take her to meet my brother. My brother raises dogs. I'm trying to think. What's the name of that dog my brother raises, Karen? Pit bulls.
Pit bulls.
Yeah, he's good with dogs and animals. And we go to my brother's house, and she sees these two pit bulls, and they're like mannered, they're disciplined, they're sitting there like statues. So, my gosh, your brother was the kind of cool guy. Yeah, my brother's straight like an arrow. He's worked 35 years for the power company.
Completely different from you.
She left, and I said, well, I'll talk to you. I'm going to be here a day or two. And I told my brother the story about her, right? So that's the first part of the story, okay? Then I go back to California. She calls me. She says, that movie that's in Redbox, Sinatra Club, everybody in Long Island's looking at this movie. And I get in a limousine with some guy who's a rich guy, and he says he knows you. I go, what rich guy knows me? And she says his name is Andy. I go, well, how old is this guy? He's about maybe 48 or 50, something like that. I don't know this guy named Andy. And I'm not going to, she wanted me to talk to him on the phone. And she goes, well, he said he babysitted your kids when they were little kids. So like my son was born in 68. So in 78, he was probably 10 years old. This guy, Andy, claimed he babysitted my kids. I completely forgot if this guy ever did. So I called my son up. I go to number one, son, do you remember a guy named Andy who babysat you? He goes, yeah, Dad. He gave me his name. He only lived 3 blocks away. I go, really? Some wacky girl that searched me down was hanging out with him and talking about me. And then she said he wanted to talk to you. So my son said, what do you want to talk about? I said, I have no idea. But this girl, Jennifer, told me this guy got rich listening to you. I go, what can a guy get rich listening to me? So then my son gave me his name. And I called him back. So, okay, I'll say hello to Andy. So they're in a limousine. And he calls me, goes, Mr. Polisi, you don't remember this, but you told me when I was 16 to buy a house. Okay. He says, then you told me buy another house and another house and another house. He says, for 20 years, I've been buying and selling houses. He says, I have several $1 million worth of, housing investments and all. And he was very happy. I said, well, my son remembers you babysit him. You used to take him up to the toy store and buy Hot Wheels, right? So she was running around Long Island, New York, talking about Sal Polisi. But I don't know this. What the hell do I know? So then I get back on the phone. Okay, how are you doing? Are you going to quit the drugs and quit hooking? She said, oh, I got a job. Okay, you got a job. So then maybe a couple of months goes by. And she calls me desperate. She says, oh, I got involved with these mob guys. And I borrowed money and they're threatening to kill me. I go, Jennifer, I told you to get a job. Are you really in danger? She said, I think so. Okay, I'm going to have a guy call you and just listen to him. So I call this FBI friend of mine in Long Island. I tell him the whole story. So he goes ahead and somehow he straightens out the money she borrowed and gets her off the hook from these mob guys. Maybe he had an informant. Somehow he pulled it off. And she called me up. Oh, they'll say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, now make sure you keep the job and stop going to these nightclubs bragging about mob guys. Well, that's the first part of the story.
Well,
The story gets ugly.
Oh, so there's more.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot more. You're going to continue with it? Because I know you're doing just a little teaser because you do an episode about this whole thing.
Oh, yeah. So. I'm gonna give all the detail. And it's all in the newspapers and everything. So any of our listeners want to ask a question, ask now, and then I'll tell you the rest.
Okay. Well, we do got a super chat here for $20 from Jacqueline, of course.
Jacqueline, how are you?
She said, Sal, what actors and actresses do you believe could play Foxy, Jane, Lisa, and Angela? And did you really have the drugs stashed at your old property?
Well, that's all true. I did have a box back there. But the truth was that when I went back to New York to get that ammunition box that was buried, there was certain personal items in there I wanted. So I was tempted to throw away the drugs, but I will admit, in '89, it was one last attempt, and I got rid of the drugs and kept all my personal items. And there was a whole bunch of baseball cards in there I wanted since I had them when I was a kid. But anyway, yeah, there's probably good actors and actresses. Now, after all these years, we'd have to, find young people. I will tell you, we were certainly focused on doing the Sinatra Club with big actors. And I flew to New York once to meet a guy that nobody knew. And I went to a Broadway production. He was one man on stage playing like a half a dozen characters. And it turns out he loved the script and he wanted to play John Gotti, but nobody knew him. It was before he got famous. And his name is Chris Pine.
Damn.
Yeah. And so we had a day or two and we shared storylines and he had a copy of the book. And then we didn't have the money. He said, I'd do this. I'd play John Gotti for no money. Of course, he became very, very famous, right? All the movies he's done. And I never did see him again. So sometimes you miss the boat. But I think there's great actors and actresses out there that could play those characters. Yeah.
Good question, Jacqueline. Yeah. Bubbles over here, he said, we need to make Jacqueline a producer on our next project. She has some great questions.
Good. Yeah, that'd be done. So anyway, back to Jennifer Gross. By this time, I'm sure people are Googling and see what happened. So she gets involved with the guy who had a lot of money. And his name was Coppola. I don't remember his first name. And she's taking money off him. And one time she ripped him off for like 40 or 50,000 cash. And she called me. She said, "Oh, what could we do with 50,000?" I go, "Jennifer, you're going to get in trouble." Again, she gets involved with the mob guy. She was trying to loan the money out as a Shylock. And the mob threatens her. So the FBI agent that I knew got a hold of her and went and said, "Look, you got to quit doing this stuff. Stay away from all these mob guys. They're just going to rip you off, And she finally listened. She did that. But she kept bugging this guy named Coppola. And then a year or 2, 3 years later, Joey Bubbles, who's on here, he even talked to her once.
Really? He got to speak with her.
Yeah, he did. She was very suggestive, very flirtatious. And then maybe, I don't know, 2 years ago, I got a call from that FBI agent who helped her out. Said, "Sal, you're not going to believe this. I got bad news." I go, "What's bad news?" "Jennifer. she murdered this guy named Coppola. I go, what? She went to his house, tried to extort him, and murdered him.
Jeez, man.
And then burnt the house down.
She burnt the house down too?
Yeah, yeah. So this is an example of how you can get carried away, get caught up with the mob, thinking you get away with all kinds of stuff. And you could look her up, Jennifer Gross from Long Island. And now she's doing 18 years. So there's an example of, how a life goes into the toilet.
Well, her husband, that article I found was from the New York Times. It says, let me read it here. Let me pull it up on my screen. It says a former judge from Long Island was sentenced yesterday to 33 months in prison for conspiracy to launder almost $400,000 in proceeds from stolen jewelry. Let's see. Yeah, so that's what he ended up getting. And he was tied in with the Genovese family.
Right.
So he was doing something with them.
And he was a sitting judge on the bench.
Damn, so he wasn't even retired or nothing, man. He was just...
When that happened, he got busted and went to jail. I don't know what happened to his life after that. But her life went into the toilet. I don't know what happened to him. Well, I know she's in Bedford Hills prison now.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, he's probably out by now. He only got 33 months. So that was a while ago. Yeah, that's good. I like that. That'll be a good episode. We can go into full depth if that's
something
something we can do. Because for the people watching, I didn't even know that Sal was going to share this story today.
No.
He said, I got a story I want to tell the people and give them some kind of teaser to let them know, like interesting story we get into.
What I'd like to do is we should write to her and tell her we want to know all about being in a woman's prison and what it's like in there. And is it straight? Is it corrupt? Is there, graft? Is there bribery? What's going on in a woman's prison? Because, I think there's a lot of women that would like to know, a lot of men would like to know what goes on up there.
Yeah, you think she'd be like, oh, Sal, just text her, sends in a message or something.
We can deposit some money in her account. She'll give us information,
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go through some of these questions, but was that a good stopping point for your story then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a different type of story.
It is, but it's still to do with the mob and, just getting tied in and see what kind of bad impact it had on her. Let's see. So our first one this morning was from Pete. He said, intellectually engaging, in my opinion, a step above all other shows in this genre. Sal and Adrian are the best in my book. Thank you, Pete.
Well, we like to think that we're giving good stories, good information, and maybe people can realize that, crime is not glorious. It's not glamorous, and you got to tell it the way it was. Remember, all those months, all those months I told those stories, I kind of kept my energy down. But I think I can get excited about next year, about some of the things that we can do. And, a protection section for seniors and women, all kinds of things that we'd like to cover, to help listeners and not just, tell little mob tales. Mob tales are old news. And I know it sounds glamorous, but it's not.
Pat says, I agree with Pete. Sal and Adrian are definitely one of the best. Well, thank you, Pat. Remember, he's the one that got the cards always support.
Yeah.
Sean said, looking forward to the last episode and beginning of the new year. Everyone be safe tonight. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks.
My dad said, some real good fellows on here. True gentlemen.
Yeah, we got a lot of nice customers and followers, really.
Oh yeah. Joey Bubbles, he said good morning and happy New Year's, fellas. Same to you, Joey.
Yeah, Bubbles, tell Adrian you actually talked to that Jennifer.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear. Let's see. Mr. E says you guys were called fake on just some drama here. he's just telling us about some stories, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Other people talking crap, but like I said, man, you don't get involved.
Nah, I'm not interested in debates. We're interested in sending out good information, entertaining information, and maybe be able to help somebody.
Right, yeah, just doing some beneficial stuff that actually has some kind of purpose and meaning.
Right.
Pat says happy and healthy New Year's. Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Same to you. Joseph says, "What up, Sal and Adrian? Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's to you too, man." Bobby says, "Good morning, fellas. Happy New Year's, boys. Same to you, man." Let's see. Here we go. We got one from Paul. He says, "Just discovered your podcast videos here on YouTube. So you were one of the best storytellers of this genre. I have subscribed, and I'm going to figure out how to join your Patreon. Also, good job, guys." Well, thank you, Paul. You're very nice, man.
Thanks, Paul. Tell your friends so we can get a lot of coverage, and we're going to, touch on all kinds of crime topics, crime in America, and all kinds of, murder cases, all kinds of things to help women to spot the flags.
And Paul, as well, if you go to the video description of this video, you can sign up to our Patreon. There should be a Patreon link. It says subscribe to Sal and Adrian's Patreon channel. That's all you have to go, and then it'll ask you to sign up and everything. So hopefully see you on there, and you can, text Sal back and forth and ask him some questions too. Let's see. Jacqueline says, "Good morning, guys." Good morning,
Good morning. Good morning.
Pat says, "We definitely want a Sinatra club too."
Well, maybe we'll start a little club and how we can raise the funds to go to Sinatra Club too, which would be really interesting if we could get some great actors. We are going to be doing some television soon. We haven't announced it, but it's just a matter of time. I'm going to be hosting a television show soon. So you guys will all be welcome to tune into that.
Oh, yeah, that'll be a good one. Let's see. Joseph says, "Hey, Sal, do you have any stories with Tony Roach Rampino?" Yeah, you
Tony
do.
Roach. The only thing I can tell you about Tony Roach, I think he was the best mob athlete that I ever seen. The guy was tall. He was a Brooks Robinson type of a baseball player. He could almost dunk a basketball. Unfortunately, he had a little bit of a drug Jones. You know what a Jones is, a habit,
Yeah.
But he was a good guy, and he was totally committed to John Gotti. I mean, Tony Roach, as far as I knew, he was just a good guy.
Yeah. Let's see. Pete says Sinatra Club board game on an app, like on the phone. That
Right.
might be something too. Yeah, he must have was listening in on maybe Patreon or something.
I just did send Joey Bubbles and Adrian some pictures of the board I created 15 years ago. Now we're all going to get together and start doing the detail of this thing, which would be a fun game to go around and play with all kinds of, factors involved in it. I'm probably going to change the names because we got some people out there who might not like us. They're sort of detractors. So we'll have like the Gambadinos and the Columbuses and stuff like that. We'll have some interesting names of the families. It'll be a 5-family game.
Yeah, and then basically what you do, you want to give out details of what it is? I mean,
We're going to work on it. We'll start sharing it.
Yeah.
We got to get it copyrighted, and I think it would be eventually a video game. It would probably be a fun video game.
Yeah, because I mean, even like Pete says here, you can get it on, your iPhone. You can play a game on your phone. You don't even have to be on the damn,
we'll have
TV
to get somebody to, put it into a form to get it on a computer or a game. So we'll see what happens with it. We can get a lot of suggestions of the course of play.
Let's see. He had a follow-up. He said, "Did you really have a parakeet named Veggie or Vigi? What is this? Vigi?"
Oh, that's funny. No, that was a little bit of an embellishment because my wife did throw something at me once. And while we were writing the script, I just called the parakeet Viggy, like
Viggy.
the Vig. Yeah, like the vigorous. Yeah. Yeah, in the movie, it was kind of fun with Danny Nucci. I got to be good friends with those guys. I mean, Nucci is a really good actor. I mean, Danny Nucci, he was in Titanic. And then Leo Rossi was a terrific actor, been around forever. He actually wrote the script for the Gotti movie with Travolta, but it didn't play out. But, Leo's like a source. He's like a legend in Hollywood. He's been around 50 years. So I enjoyed all the characters. I did.
Yeah.
The actors, yeah.
Miss Bubbles says, "Good morning, gentlemen." Good morning.
CC Bubbles. That's great.
Let's see. Boris here says, "Whatever happened to Angela Cookie Spione?"
Yeah, that was Tommy's first wife, Angela.
Oh, okay.
And she worked in a bar where I hung out, where I actually got shot in front of the bar. I think she had a big block Chevy, and if I remember, and she offered to race me with my Corvette.
Oh, okay.
And I don't want to tell you what the prize was going to be, who won, but
I've
I
read
did
it.
race her, and I did beat her.
Yeah, Pete says it says a guy she killed was her boyfriend of 20 years, or did she take someone out?
I don't
Maybe
know.
I don't
She
know.
was pretty rugged. All I know is she was behind the bar, and I remember this vision. She was kind of I don't know, a large girl, maybe. She would take champagne glasses and put them on her breasts and stand them up.
Oh, that's all you
Yeah,
remember.
that's how I remember. Yeah, Angela Cookie. Yeah.
Let's see. This one is from Jan Michael. It says, "Sal, do you go to any of the big boxing matches out of the Garden in the 60s, 70s?"
I
Allie
did. I used to
Fraser.
go to the Garden and watch some fights. You know, being in and around the mob guys, I had a connection at Yankee Stadium to get tickets. And I actually went to the 73 World Series with John Gotti. And we took our young kids with us. And I had connection to get tickets at the Garden. Excuse me. So we did attend a lot of sporting events. Gotti loved boxing. He'd get there and watch all kinds of popular boxing matches.
Betting on him too.
Well, everybody bets something, yeah.
I'm sure. Let's see. So Pat says only 18 years did she plead down. I think he's talking about your story that you were.
Oh, Jennifer?
I think so.
I think she did take a plea. Otherwise, she would have got 25 to life because
Yeah.
she premeditated the murder. And I think
Planned
she
it all
put in
out.
a couple of years now, you know. She did call me a couple of times. I didn't accept the call, but
Oh, from prison,
now
really?
that we're doing a show, we might get inside information because if you look up Bedford Hills Prison in New York, it's a very, very famous woman's prison. So I'd like to get information on what goes on inside those walls.
Probably a lot, man. Just like
Yeah.
what was going on in Lewisburg. Let's see. Other verse says, "Happy New Year." Happy New Year to you too, man.
All right.
Let's see. Oh, he's talking about the detractors. You know
Yeah.
you're getting attention when you
Yeah.
the
Yeah. I won't
detractors.
even mention these guys' names, man. They see you up there. I don't know what it is, whether it's jealousy, resentment. I don't know. I never put anybody down. I always told the truth. There's a particular story that has sort of evolved over the last 30, 40 years. And I'm not going to go into it, but 99% of my stories are all 99% true. So I didn't embellish, I didn't exaggerate, and I never lied about any stories. And that's the way I'm going to leave it.
Let's see. NYC House Radio says, "Happy New Year's, fellas. Always a great show. Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it, man." Oh, well, see, we got a super chat here, but it's kind of funny because they're asking about Chris Colombo. They said people would pay to watch that. It said, "Would you have a sit down with him?"
I would not talk to that person. I have nothing to say. I don't care if there was a lot of money on the line. I don't need it. I don't want it. And I'm not going to listen to somebody who thinks they know who I am. And the truth is, only a few people in this world, like Joey Bubbles, knows who I was, who I became, and who I am today. So I have nothing to say to detractors.
No. Karen in the background.
Karen's back there.
Yeah, she's telling you watch it, so.
And believe me, Karen, she's no Karen. She's very smart, very sensible, and has a lot of common sense.
Let's see. So over here, the next one we got is Happy New Year, Sal, and many more to come from old Randy.
Thanks. I hope we're around for the next 5 years disseminating good information because, our country is changing and we got to pay attention to crime. And it's the people out here that we can build an audience and start thinking about what can we do to reduce some of the crimes against women and kids. The men, I'm not so excited about trying to help men right now, but we got women and kids that are victims. So that's where I think Adrian and I want to go next year.
Let's see. Sports Card Yankee says, fellas. He's probably just saying, what's up? Thanks for tuning
Yeah,
in, man.
how are you? I did get a Tommy DeVito rookie card for my nephew, and I mailed it out. So everybody likes Yankees, and everybody likes Giants in New York.
Let's see. Paris said, no question today. Just wanted to say Happy New Year's and really thank Sal for all the great stories. You've kept us entertained.
Good. I hope we're going to have more stories, and I hope you'll get involved with ideas. We're going to start asking the listeners to give us ideas. What can we do to help women and children? That is my passion. How do we help them?
Let's see. Pete says, I was a
Louis Pipes.
Louis Pipes, but not a criminal. My agent, Gary Reynolds, booked me, and the owners kept me on and got me more work. Do you know what he's talking about or referring to then?
Yeah, he's referring to the Louis Pipes character in the Sinatra Club. Who was singer.
Okay.
You know, you got to
Oh,
remember now,
okay.
Sinatra Club had some embellished characters like Louis Pipes and then Squeaky, the little short guy that was selling the stolen watches.
Yeah.
But, you know, I did the best I could. We had no money. We made that movie for less than a couple of cars. We made it for a little bit of money.
Pete says, another great story.
Yeah.
Let's see. Joey Bubbles said, I remember what the winner got when you raced that girl, Angela.
Oh, yeah, but I didn't take it. I was offered, but I didn't take it.
Jacqueline said it's called Betty's House. Do you know what she's referring to?
Explain, Jacqueline. What is that, Betty's House? Tell us, please.
Oh, let's see. What did she say? A very good comeback to that sit down. Oh, well, she's talking about the other thing. No, maybe she'll mention that again. But no, I forgot to say thank you, Lori, for asking that question, though, and sending it in the super chat. Let's see. Pete said Sal's stories have been verified from other sources I've read. Joey Bubbles, I remember too, but Sal declined. Sal looking over his
Not
shoulder.
thinking about it. That's a long time ago.
Lee said, just jumped on, guys. Hey, Lee, thank you for tuning in, man. Glad you made it. Let's see. Yeah. No, yeah. If you guys have more questions, you know, I know we've been going through them all. If you got some more, but yeah, I just wanted to say as well, you know, for this 2023, we've had a pretty good year, man. Like I told you last year, at the beginning of this year, Sal, I had like 1,000 subscribers, you know, for this YouTube channel, and then me and you came together, and I had around 5,000, and now it's at 13,000 almost. I think it's 8 subscribers away from being at 13,000. So hopefully we can end the year on a even note. You know what I mean?
Cool.
Get it to 13,000. But you know, it's nice that we've added this segment to the YouTube channel because, you know, this one with me and you, we've done 29 episodes and then 20 lives shows. So I mean, that's almost 50 episodes altogether. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've been putting in work, man. 2 a week, you know, putting them out there and just really growing the channel and getting people interested in all of our stories. So
did you mention to the listeners that we're going to be in LA in a couple of weeks?
No, I didn't. We've mentioned it a little bit over the weeks, but we haven't said, you know, but yeah, we're going to be going there and doing your, you know, well, I'm just, you know, the TV series is what we'll call it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm going to host a little TV show about the credibility and authenticity of mob movies. And because of my relationship with the guys back in the 70s, all those, you know, Goodfellas guys in that movie, we're going to take apart Goodfellas piece by piece and display the authenticity of it, the motivation of it, the characters, how accurate they were. I'm not here to bash anybody because I know how difficult it is to make a movie. But, you know, that movie was pretty accurate. Of course, you know, it'll be fun to do because I sort of lived it. So we're going to do that. Then we'll do several episodes. And I'm not sure, but I'm thinking we might do Donnie Brasco after that.
That'd be good. I mean, you think like the guys, I mean, you're really, I mean, like you said, you're 78 years old. You were around a lot of these old school guys when they were coming up, you know. I mean, who can really connect, you know, Tommy DeSimone or Foxy, any of these people who, I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
know a whole lot of. I just haven't really seen anything. I guess I'm just not aware of anybody else
Yeah.
sharing those kind of stories about these guys. And
Well, think about it. You'd have to be. I mean, we had one guy that his son was on here, and
Red
Red
Collins,
Collins. He
yeah,
wouldn't. He probably don't want to talk about his life back then, but he's old enough to remember,
yeah,
the things we did 50 years ago.
he was in the
And the thing
Sinatra Club.
about what's that?
He remembers being in the Sinatra Club, I believe, is what
Oh yeah,
his son told
and
me.
yeah, because it was very secretive. You got to understand the Italian mob clubs were open doors because they had state charters. I didn't have no state charter for the Sinatra Club. I just rented this place, put a few tables in there, and made it nicer looking than the Bergen, which was a bunch of mixed furniture. And then I brought in good food, and we played polka, for hours and hours. It was the winter of 71, 72 that we did that. And we didn't get bothered. And of course, there was, sort of conflict within families back then. But essentially, what came out of it was the relationship between myself and Foxy Girotti and then Tommy DeSimone. And these three people that came together had to get permission from the Lucchese guys, the Colombo guy, and the Gambino guy, which was Charlie Fatico. So, and at that point, I had been reporting to Joe Brancato secretly with Dominic Cataldo. We would tell him, "Yeah, we got a great business, gambling business going on." But it wasn't. The money we made wasn't about gambling. It was secretly about drugs. So I wasn't allowed to go meet a lot of wise guys. Cataldo kept me away from those wise guys, but I managed to make a lot of money with him. So there was a secret inside a secret, and that's the way it worked.
Yeah, and that's why you have these stories with some of these guys because you were around them. I mean, when you were doing hijackings and stuff, but
Right.
once you got more
Right.
involved with the drugs, it kind of you were more making a lot of money. You didn't need to mess with their operations that they were doing
Right.
unless you just wanted to have some quote unquote fun with
Right.
doing some exhilarating heist or something is what you
And
call
that's the truth, because I always said, God, I didn't like drug dealing.
it. Hmm.
It was boring. Hijacking a truck was exciting. Robbing a bank was exciting. You had to make a plan. You had to lay it all out. The approach, the move, the getaway, and drugs was boring. It was just a lot of money involved in it. So we enjoyed doing the heist, and even if we didn't make a bunch of money, it was a good show.
Hmm.
That's
I
what it was.
think another crime thing we can go into with this next year is drugs in America that are coming through. And I think you personally can, go on and explain about, just drugs in America because there's a lot more heavier, stuff that kill people, the fentanyl and everything like that. So there might be a lot you can expand on. I mean, we haven't went into depth about, you selling drugs and what effect it had on, you and people and everything
Right.
like that. I mean, I think you would have a lot of information about that because that was your prime thing you were doing for such a long time. So,
Right. Right. And people think that you purvey drugs to kids. That wasn't so. There was so many drug addicts in New York City. The thing about selling drugs was get it to a drug addict, and you didn't want him to overdose on it, and you didn't want him to disagree with the potency of it. I mean, that's why Frank Lucas labeled his drugs. You just wanted them to take it every week, every month. And whether they were working guys or they were scammers or hustlers, you didn't want them to die. You want them to continue. It's like loaning money, Shalak money out to a guy who's got to pay you the interest. You don't want to beat him up. You don't want to send him to run away. You wanted him to be a regular customer.
right. I mean, so I mean, there's always differences with all of it. I mean, we'll go into depth with it. We'll talk more about it. I think that you can provide some good information with it, especially we compare your stories from your personal ones and then what's going on with the country now and
Right.
all the terrible effects. But I was going to read some of these questions as well. I think we had a few more. Let's see. Yeah, Jacqueline said in the hood, Bedford Hills commercial facility. It's called
Betty's
Betty's
house.
House.
Okay.
You might have brought something up. I don't. You
Yeah,
must
I
have
didn't know
said
it was
something.
called Betty's house. Ask Jacqueline, why is it called Betty's house?
Okay, she'll probably say something if she's still tuned in. Miss Bubble says, Congratulations, Adrian and Sal. You guys are doing great. Thank you. Thank you and Mr. Bubbles for supporting us. Let's see. Back in 2000s, I was singing, or what did he say? Singing, and the owner told me Peter Gotti was there. He said, "Don't say anything." I said, "About what?"
That sounds like the mob. Don't say anything about anything.
Yeah, don't go up to him and ask for an autograph. Let's see. I'm just trying to go over a couple of them. There. Let's see. He said, "Thank you to these YouTube shows. I know who I was performing for. Some are still active, and according to what I've read, so yeah, he must have been singing in a lot of different areas, man.
Yeah,
To be involved and see all these guys, man.
yeah. I remember Peter Gotti well. I'm telling you, he would be in the Bergen with a New York City Department of Sanitation uniform on. He was the garbage man. Okay,
Right.
that was in the early '70s. Later on, his son Peter Gotti Jr. was my right guard on my Pop Warner football team. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that Peter Gotti was going to be the upper echelon of the mob. Of course, he just followed John's footsteps, you know.
From
But he wasn't exactly the sharpest tool in the shed or the brightest crayon in the box, Peter. But he got involved. He took his name and he, became the boss. I thought the mob was going downhill when they announced that Peter Gotti was the boss.
Well, he was active from I think late '90s to the early 2000s, and then he got busted.
Right.
I see. We got a new Patreon subscriber from Sean. He let's see. Yeah, he subscribed. He was asking questions on here earlier. Thank you, Sean, for signing up, man. Appreciate that.
All right.
I'll have to get with you on there and help you sign up and ask some questions and text Sal some stuff on there. But let's see. Bobby says the drug companies are the true villains.
Oh, yeah. All you got to do is read about those drug companies down there in West Virginia when they had lines distributing drugs. And eventually the government made some type of an arrest and they paid off mega millions of dollars to politicians. Look it up. I mean, those guys never even went to jail. And the mob was peanuts in comparison.
Yeah, he says Bobby's right. The new drug pushers are the commercials on TV.
Right. Well, I mean, just look at the new commercials lately. I knew guys who were paying $20, $30 for each Viagra. Now you can get on television for 87 cents. Who made all the money?
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, there's always that. I see the sponsors and shit. Some other podcasters, they have Blue Chew is what they call it. You just chew it and then you're ready to go, apparently.
They got what they call Blue Shoes?
Blue Chew.
Oh. Okay.
Blue Chew. You just eat it and then you're ready to roll.
I don't know nothing about that stuff.
Let's see. Pat says big pharma. Here, I don't know. You read it.
No doubt. Big. No doubt about it.
Yeah, they're facing some charges. Yeah. Some things are.
Yeah.
Let's see. He said, "Sal, do you did you do a bank job
on Francis Lewis Boulevard? I did."
How did you find
how
that?
How do you know that?
I don't know. Let's ask.
Wow.
How'd you find that information? Who did you do that one with? Did you remember, or what was that about?
That was with Joe Delamora and Eddie Pravado.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, maybe you know what? Next week we were having an episode come out about those two guys, Sal doing those bank robberies. There was 3 of them all together that we had covered. I think 2 of them.
Pretty wild in those days.
Yeah, 2 of them we talk about on YouTube, and then we of course we have an exclusive one on Patreon. So that'll be coming out next Saturday.
Somebody knew Francis Lewis Boulevard.
Yep. Well, let's see. Boris says Happy New Year's from
Serbia.
Serbia. Much love to you guys. Thank you. Same to
All
you, man.
right.
Let's see. He had some more information. He said trench coats, black caddy.
Well, I don't know about the trench coats and the caddy. You got to remember in the 70s, there was bank robberies in Queens every day. The government didn't know exactly what to do. I mean, it was the classic location for bank robberies. Queens.
Yeah. Let's see. So what else do you have planned then for this year? I mean, what do you want to accomplish, on with the show or just even with your life, I guess? What do you want to?
We want to educate, families, women. You remember I told you that every day, 3 women a day are being murdered. And maybe sometimes 50% of these murders are never solved. But once we get a following online, as you know, information can come in and we can pass it on. So, and maybe there's families who can get closure. A lot of the mob hits, murders, families never got closure. And that's a terrible thing to have somebody in your family murdered and you don't even know for real if they are dead.
Yeah, that is another thing, never getting that closure of any kind. They just because
Right.
remember I told you, you remember you told me first that the mob was like a cult and all that, and it's like, well,
Right.
they were doing some serious sick stuff, chopping up
Right.
people and
Right.
doing all that. And that's not normal and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's something we'll eventually cover as well. And you think your thoughts on the mob being a cult, and when we can compare it to maybe some kind of modern day cult, the characteristics, and just compare the two and just really dissect.
Yeah. They sell a story to young people coming up. Like Gotti was a masterful, salesperson. He was a salesperson. Come join me. I'm going to be such and such. And when I look back to the early 70s when I met him, I laughed to myself thinking this guy actually believes he's going to be, the head of the New York Mafia. And it was like preposterous, impossible. But he pulled it off, and it was a movement. He just had people following him. He was a charismatic guy. He was bright. He was well dressed. He dressed natty style, and he had a time. It's, people get convinced when someone has a big personality.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, you think, a lot of these bosses and stuff, they are smart in their own way, whether people like it or not, they are, and whether they use it for criminal activities or
Right.
to, run something legit, it's different. It's just, I don't know. That's maybe we'll figure out why people go down these paths. You're one that, went down a path like that, and we can understand why you wanted to get involved with crime.
Yeah.
Why was it such a turn on for you, I guess, and
well, when you read about like a guy like Casso, who was a sick, demented, vicious, killer. Even Sammy the Bull called him, what did he call him? A nut job or whatever he called him. Of course, Casso was wacky. He got away with murder, out and out murder. And then eventually he flipped and he tried to save himself, but he forgot one thing. You can't lie to the government because they're going to find out 99 and 44 100ths of all the stories that you tell them better be true. They'll check it out.
Yeah.
And he lied to the government. So eventually he got 425 years and he died a miserable death.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think happens to murderers. Sooner or later, they die a horrible, miserable death.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Lee, he's excited for this. He said, "Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in our country." Yeah,
right.
That's what we want to do.
I've been watching. Just because I was involved in crime, I wasn't stuck under a rock. I've been watching politics for 50, 60 years. And of course, I laughed when Richard Nixon said, "I'm not a crook." Well, the truth came out. He was a crook. But in those days, it wasn't as adamant, the division. We have a divided country. Now, did I like Donald Trump? Some of the stuff he did? Yeah. He did some good things for the people in the country, but he's a big blowhard. And people just want to follow him because he wasn't a politician. I can understand that. Can he be an effective president? I think if he didn't have criminal cases, he could be an effective president. Somebody has to get up there in that office. As far as Joe Biden, I mean, he's a half a step away from going to sleep. So who's going to be the candidate? And I mean, there's so much controversy, and we have a divided America. I would love to have people call in and tell us what they think we should do about America.
Yeah. It looks like, I believe Unique is his name. He said divide and conquer mentality.
Right.
Let's see. Jacqueline said, this is a fact. When the booster selling stolen goods went to Italian gambling spots, those Italians would buy everything. You would never walk back out with money. LOL.
That's interesting. I think a lot of times you'd get the money, but you'd probably get 20 cents on the dollar. I mean, I experienced that stuff early on with the first truck hijacking we ever did. Those Gambinos just ripped us off. We should have got 100, 150,000. They gave us 25,000, take the money and go. Well, that was it. I never sold them another whole load of a hijacked truck. I mean, Jimmy Burke was great. We negotiated with Jimmy Burke. He offered us 65,000 for a load of coats out of South America, and then he gave us 80,000. So Jimmy was pretty fair. He was just interested in making a fast buck. He was a great hustler. He was sharp as a tack.
Pat said, Sal, what was your drug of choice that you dealt with?
Well, I mean, I learned about the heroin business quietly from Cataldo. I made sure that I always wore a mask mixing that stuff. I mean, I learned all the details. And then when I went to prison and listened to guys like Fat GG and all the Harlem guys, I may believe I didn't know anything about drugs, but I listened to everything they ever said. And there was a huge drug business in the 70s. It was huge. Remember, the guys that came back from Vietnam, they were on drugs. So there was always a big, demand for heroin. And of course, I had one guy, he would test it in front of me. And so I knew what was lethal and what wasn't. And I don't want to give away all the drugs. So we stepped on it. We called it stepping on it. We, cut it up. And I had this guy, Victor, he would test it right in front of me. So it was heroin. That was the thing to sell back in the early 70s. Eventually, by 80, then cocaine was in.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Boris says, who whacked Thomas for Furia? Ferrari?
Yeah.
I don't know. who could do anything?
That was Teresa Ferrara. That was one of Tommy's girlfriends.
Oh, okay.
She was a pretty girl. I think they found her head somewhere. Now, I'm not sure why she was murdered or how she was murdered, but there was rumors that she was giving information to the government or maybe the state. But as far as I knew, I didn't know her, but there was a lot of rumor about Teresa.
Damn, yeah. Look who's in the chat. David Zucker. He says, Happy New Year.
David. Good morning, David.
Happy New Year to you too, David. Let's see here. Yeah, this one says, Sal, did anyone from the mob was driving European sports cars? It seems like all it was Cadillacs and Lincolns. Any mobsters and Ferraris?
Well, that's a good point, because most of the guys, the Italian guys growing up in the 70s, they wanted that Cadillac and that Lincoln. I will tell you, though, that when Gotti got out of jail the second time, they were going to give him a Lincoln, and he didn't want a Lincoln. So he got a Mercedes, and he sat in the back seat of the Mercedes, long before, he whacked out Castellano. So he was already sitting in the back of a Mercedes in 1978 because he got out in the summer of 77. And most Italian guys were happy driving a Cadillac or Lincoln. I had a Porsche and 11 Corvettes, so I was a little extravagant. 11 Corvettes, yeah.
Jeez, where'd you store them all? In multiple garages? Or did you have...
I had a building, and I had one kid who would come in and just polish them with Pledge furniture polish.
Damn, man. So you had a whole spot for them. And I mean, with these, I'm assuming what were the ones that you were stealing, the chop shop operation? Well,
I'd buy wrecked ones. And of course, we would get the parts. We called it midnight auto sales. And guys who would give, like Peter Zaccaro, I'd give him an order to go out and get me a certain type of a Corvette. and we dismantle all the parts, save all the parts, and dispose of the chassis. And I had a Corvette shop. Eventually, I filled it up with parts.
And Joey says Sal had a nice Bill Bass Lincoln Mark IV.
I had a couple of those. I did. And I had a remote starter in 1978 or 79. So, I mean, I thought about, guys getting bombed and all, like Frankie DeChico was in a car and he got bombed. Well, this particular Lincoln that Joey Bubbles is talking about, I had a little box. I could start it from inside the house.
Oh, okay. So this was before they even had that kind of technology like out there,
Wi-Fi, yeah.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah.
That I guess that makes sense because all these, a couple of these guys are getting bombed, and I mean, yeah, man, it's nuts, man, to really think about that. But maybe that, that's another guy we never really touched on was him and your inner counter. I mean, know him a little bit, but maybe there's something we can.
There was a commercial in those days. It was by Panasonic, and I don't know. The slogan was they'd show a product, and the slogan would come up slightly ahead of its time. So I was always running around thinking I got to get ahead of my time. So yeah.
He said his father put the remote starter in.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh damn, man. So yeah, he was your go-to mechanic.
Yeah. His dad was a master mechanic.
Yeah, that's what he was telling me.
Cadillac guy. Yeah.
Wow. Yankee Car says Midnight Auto Sales.
Midnight Auto Sales. Yeah, we take orders. What do you need? Somebody would want something and send somebody out to get the car, and then we'd chop it up.
Leon says, Happy New Year's, guys. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Leon.
Thanks, Leon.
He came on when we first started doing these lives. He came on and we chatted with him. Pretty cool guy, man. He's always watching our shows.
Well, we've got to initiate. Yeah, we got to initiate. Women participating in some of these conversations and how we can help them protect themselves. Look, there's a lot of scams to do with dating sites, and women get sucked in, and guy tells them, oh, I'm in love with you, you're beautiful, and I'm in Saudi Arabia, I just need to get a ticket to get home, could you send me 2,000? Woman sends him the 2,000, she never hears from him again. So you got to be alert to all these scams and schemes and protect yourself and your family.
Yeah. JW says the criminal in the White House is bringing a lot of criminals across the border every day. Pay attention, people.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt. I mean, this is what's going on. You got to look for it as it is. Yes, there is criminality going on.
David says, see everyone next week. See you, David.
All right, David.
Let's see. Lisa. I think I say that. Oh, no. Leslie. Leslie says, hey, Sal, you ever been to a New Year's Eve party with Gotti? Happy New Year's.
No, that didn't happen. I didn't party with those guys. I stayed away from them.
Well, what about the fireworks? The 4th of July?
Well, that was 4th of July.
That was
they had a 4th of July party in the neighborhood. They roped off the streets and, had fireworks. That was different. But that was in the early 70s.
Yeah. Was that when he was doing that then at all? Or?
Oh, yeah. 72, 73, 74. Yeah. Then he went to jail. I went to jail 74. He went to jail 74. I don't know what happened after 75, 76. I backed away from those guys.
Okay. I got a super chat here from Lori again. Thank you, Lori. She sent in $5. She said, who was a bigger heroin dealer, Carmine Galante or Joe Armone?
I don't know, but I do know that Joe Armone guy, he was dealing drugs way back. I mean, probably in the 40s or the 50s. He was the guy that was in prison in Lewisburg with us.
Well, think about Carmine Galante too. As I did some research, was when I read a book about him. Frank DiMatteo. He was an ex-mobster, and he wrote a book about Carmine Galante. And he, from what I believe, what he said, they had this whole connection and heroin pipe from Italy, and they would go and meet there, him and Joe Bonanno, and they would. So I would think, Galante, if he had this big connection with, Italy, and he would come back and they were doing all this other stuff. That Bonanno family, they were deeply involved with selling drugs, man. So
yeah,
it was.
I wasn't in. I didn't have the knowledge about that. I mean, the only one I knew was Messino before he got to the top. I knew him early on in the early 70s.
Well,
But,
you know,
I stayed away from other drug dealers. I really did.
with the Bonanno family too, they were eventually shunned out of like having meetings with the commission and stuff, or families interacting because
Right.
they were dealing drugs, and then they also had that that informant Joe Pistone, of course. So
Right.
they I guess their interactions with them, from what I read and researched, was that
Yeah.
they didn't have much with them. But no, that's a great question. I think both of those guys were deep involved with selling drugs,
Yeah.
man.
Everybody knew how Joe Armone got the name Joe Piney.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from go ahead. The Christmas, they were stealing the Christmas trees, right? Joe Piney,
He was
Joe
shaking
Armone.
down Christmas tree sellers in Manhattan way back in,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe the 40s. And they called him Joe Piney. Yeah. And his brother was a hitman. So, I mean, this is stuff I read, but Piney was a interesting guy in prison, very quiet.
Yeah. Leon says, anytime you want me to want the Whitey Bulger information for the show for the New Year's, I'm down, guys. The trial of the guys that killed Whitey Bulger is coming up next year. Well,
I didn't know that. We'll have to follow that trial. Yeah.
Yeah, and Leon, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you said you were in prison with him for a little while. Remember when he came on? I think he said he was in prison with Whitey. I think that's
Leon
why.
was?
I think I can't remember. There was a couple guys that I've talked to, but I think that was what he was talking about, because Whitey was telling him stories and stuff about his past. But that might be interesting to follow. Yeah, and maybe he'd be a good information to come on, and that's a new case that we could follow too.
Right. Yeah, we could follow that case.
Let's see. Mike says, "Hey guys, thanks for tuning in, Mike. Happy New Year's." Let's see. ABCD is their name. It says, Sal, what's your opinion on Israel Hamas war?
Yeah, the Hamas.
Hamas.
It's terrible. There's thousands of people being killed. I try to stay away from that stuff because I don't understand it. I just don't understand why they want to kill each other. I don't even understand the Ukrainian-Russian battle and war. I mean, I don't know. It's confusing to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we can look into it. This Boris said, by the way, you were awesome in the Netflix Get Gotti. Just finished 3 episodes. Great series. Yeah, it was cool. I liked it too.
Yeah, they did a good job.
Yeah, Pat, that was Joe Piney we were referring to.
Right.
Joey Street says Sal is one of the best performance artists, I believe.
Okay.
Let's see.
Lord.
Yeah, she was just following up on that. He said Whitey Bulger told me he was good friends with Carmine Galante. They used to visit him on his trips to NYC. So yeah, I think he was in prison with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that Whitey Bulger was sharp as a tack. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Well, Lori said, do you guys think Carlo Gambino didn't know Piney was a drug dealer? Yeah, I always wondered that, because he became the underboss to John Gotti for a while.
Yeah. At the end he did. Yeah. Who knows? Because, guys could deny it and they were warned not to do it. I always had my own idea about, the upper part of the families making money with the drugs and keeping everybody else away from it. I don't know. It's just my feeling.
Well, yeah, and they, I believe too, one time I read that if guys were involved with drugs, they got pinched. They weren't supposed to be associated with any of the mob guys, or even be recruited into being a made guy into those families. So I don't know. That
changed because I was in jail with Arnold Squitieri.
Yeah, and
he was. And then later on, when Gotti was at the end, he made Arnold Squitieri, made guy, and there was rumor that he became the head of the family. And Arnold Squitieri was a big time drug dealer.
Yeah. So there was all the Purple Gangs guys too.
Yeah, exactly.
She says Joe Bonanno claimed that he didn't know that Carmine Galante was a drug dealer, and I think I've read that too. But like I said again, from the other information I read too, it's like they were doing it together, and I like I said, we weren't there, but we can just kind of dissect the information.
Yeah, a lot of secret, transactions went on.
Yeah. Happy New Year's, Mike.
All right, Mike.
Yeah, here Leon says, I was in Coleman prison with Whitey the whole year of 2015. I sat and talked with him for hours and hours every day for the
Wow.
whole year of 2015. Geez, yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, so he has a lot of good inside information.
Well, he claimed he wasn't a informant. That's what he claimed.
Yeah, but I mean, giving information, it's
Yeah.
Lex says, Sal, who was a better dresser, John Gotti or Vincent the Chin Gigante?
I would say Gotti was probably.
Did you ever see Chen on the street then at all? Or?
I never met the Chin, no.
No. Let's see. Dirty Purdy, it says, what was going through your mind when you were on stand and Bruce Cutler cross-examined you? Was it uncomfortable?
Well, my feeling going back, it was 1986, was I'm going to tell my part of the story. I was there to paint the picture for the government of what life was like in the 70s. And all I wanted to do was get through it. And, Cutler could say whatever he wanted to say. A lot of nasty lies and all that kind of stuff. But I admitted to everything I did as far as crime. Was it uncomfortable? Yeah, it was uncomfortable. There was no doubt. I wanted to get in of that courtroom, get out, and move on. And I did predict that Gotti was going to fix the jury. And, of course, the government laughed at me, and that's exactly what happened. According to Sammy, he paid the money to win that case.
Yeah. Your old neighbor, Eddie, says, good morning, Sal.
Good morning. How are you?
Okay. Okay. I don't know how to say that name, but they said all the money that gets sent for the wars is sent back in kickbacks to Russia. Won that war from months ago. It's all a scam.
Probably so. I mean, we don't know what's going on over there, but a lot of people are losing their lives. You see women and children being murdered. It's terrible. It's terrible.
And this was another one that said, who dressed better, Gotti or Joe Watts?
I didn't pay attention to their wardrobe.
This one says from Jari. Jari says, Happy New Year's from Finland. Oh, thank you, man. That's awesome. All the way from Finland, Sal.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat, man, when you think about it, all the way over out there, man.
Yeah.
Not even in our country. Okay. Boris said, I heard Tommy DeSimone would dress up for a clown for Halloween. You ever see that?
Tommy had a strange sense of humor because I remember one night streaking was in back in the early 70s, and Foxy and Tommy ran down Fifth Avenue naked. So they were practical jokers. They were funny.
You didn't want to streak with them?
No, I didn't do the streaking thing. No, I laughed at them.
This one's interesting. It says, do you keep in touch with any old friends from the neighborhood?
Not a soul, not one soul, because Bubbles was from Long Island. He wasn't involved with the mob. I don't stay in touch with anybody. I sort of think that I was blessed to outlive all these guys.
War is the construction scam.
Maybe so.
Destroy and build.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Oh, here we got one more here. It says from Leon, he said, all real gangster bosses have crooked cops in Whitey's case. Crooked FBI. He had at least 10 of them on his payroll in Boston. He said the information was one way, them giving him info.
I believe there was corruption on both sides up there. I can't say for sure, but the stuff that did come out about Whitey Bulger killing women, it was sad to me that that's what went on. And I think Scorsese really did a great job on The Departed, because we all know that the Jack Nicholson character was sort of like, the Whitey Bulger character.
Mm-hmm. I will say, too, that I don't want to give out names yet, but I did do an interview with the guy that was in Whitey Bulger's crew. Whitey had 3 crews that he had, and he was in one of them. So he has a good redemption story, and I think in total his whole life he did like 24 years in prison, but he's got a pretty good story, man, and he really changed his life around. So it'll be good to and I'll drop that this upcoming year, probably the first month of January. That'll be coming out, but
That's
he gives
good.
out some information about Whitey that he didn't like him too much, obviously, because this guy never cooperated, and then to find out what Whitey was involved with, he was pretty upset.
Yeah.
Top feed Coco says I'm late again. Well, better late than never.
Yeah, he's there.
Dirty Purdy says, was there more to why Fat Andy had an issue with you? His son Anthony says he didn't think the way you shared the story was accurate.
I don't know what he did, what Anthony Reggiano, what he thought the story was inaccurate, but I had a little gambling business across the street from where they live, and Cataldo and I built that business up. And I always sort of thought that Andy wanted that business. And I know Cataldo went to a couple of the maid guys in the Colombo family, and we kept that location. Whether or not that led to Andy disliking me, I don't know. But again, that Andy's other son, Albert, he had a son with my first wife's sister, little Albert Reggiano. That's his name. And we just didn't get along there. I mean, I don't know what Anthony Reggiano today thinks I said about a story, but I don't even remember saying much. Maybe you can go back and listen. It's just that for some reason, I don't think he liked Dominic Cataldo.
Well, let's see. I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to say? Do you want to keep going, or I mean, we're almost to that hour and a half mark. So,
Yeah, we're done.
you have any other New Year's topics or anything?
No New Year's topics. We're going to go move on to new topics. In January, talk about protecting families, children, women, and we'll bring up some stories. I think we started to share some of the outrageous stories about I don't know, about a guy who said his wife was killed by an intruder, and yet he murdered her with a hammer and then killed the so-called intruder and got away with it for years and years. So, I did lead you to some stories, and we'll talk about them. I think I lost you, Adrian.
Sal, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I lost your picture.
It's a snowstorm.
Huh?
It's a snowstorm. That's actually a good way to do this. I can put it more.
Where's that little doggy? She's quiet.